Welcome to the NFL Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we've got looks here for the NFL Sunday and Monday wildcard games. Already have an episode going for you guys that has all the stuff you need for Saturday's two games as well. Chargers, Texans, Ravens, Steelers. So hopefully you are subscribed to that page. Make sure you are checking those videos out as well. Don't miss any of the stuff we're bringing you, including NBA as well every weekday. So you can check that out on top of it all. All right, Nate, we are looking forward to this first week of the playoffs. Let's go ahead and get your first look here from a Sunday game.
Yeah, Dalton Kincaid is 33.5 receiving yards at FanDuel still. I mean, I think it opened 31.5 across the industry and is up to 35, 36 some places because people are hitting this, realizing that he's probably in a great position here to get this on a couple catches as a pretty good deep target for Josh Allen. He's actually leads all tight ends in deep targets, second in unrealized air yards, just missing on some big passes, sixth among target rate in general. And I mean, he was quiet his last three after coming back from that knee injury. Still ran routes on 50% of his snaps, a lot more than Dawson Knox. Dawson Knox got all the run there in week 18 because he had a couple long shot incentives to go for. But now Kincaid, after being on ice down the stretch, is probably going to be used pretty frequently here in the playoffs, especially in this matchup, right? Because I mean, it's the Denver Broncos with those great corners on the outside in Surtain and Moss. That's why they give up the ninth most receptions to tight ends, because you got to attack them somewhere. I expect the Bills to come out there and just kind of be physical, run James Cook a lot, get some play action going. And with Allen, like, you just expect him to extend plays and then find guys down the field like Kincaid, who was pretty good in the playoffs last year, especially in the opener, caught 3 of 6 targets for 59 yards. That's 20 yards per catch for the quick math there. But yeah, that's the kind of downfield threat he can be. And it's the kind of scenario when the Bills, they rolled the Steelers in the wild card round at home last year. And I would think that they win this one by double digits too. But it's the same kind of physical approach that involves the tight end a lot more than a guy like Amari Cooper, maybe on the outside. That I think is who Allen's going to be targeting is Kincaid.
Yeah, that makes sense. All the stuff that you're talking about is the reason I drafted him in fantasy and just didn't work out. But it's the unrealized air yards, it's the depth of target for someone at the tight end position, and just the Josh Allen Dalton Kincaid stack did not work this year for those of us who tried it. But that does not mean that this man is not capable of it. It's just been a lot of missed opportunities, a bit of a down year, and then in injuries. And like you said, they've been able to use Dawson Knox to sort of keep Kincaid a little bit healthier and on ice. So yeah, I think this is when you sort of unpackage him and use him again in case of playoffs essentially. But let's go over and fade the Rook in his first playoff game here and take Jaden Daniels under 283.5 pass and rushing yards against a Tampa Bay defense that we both were talking about. When you look at their rankings, it's like, damn, I did not realize all these underlying metrics for the Tampa Bay defense especially is as good as it is. They're basically like top 10 in like yards and EPA, and even in success rate, they've gotten better. So that's the first bullet point here is really Tampa Bay number 1 in drop back success rate on third down specifically since week 12, but really also just the pass EPA, the success rate in general, has just been surprisingly good as all the injuries continue to mount up in the middle of the season. And now we're talking about guys coming back for the end of the year run here. Antoine Winfield coming back in this one. Jamel Dean might be back in this one as well. And so you're just really beefing up that pass defense in the backfield there. You look at the rushing stuff for Daniels, like, I think adding the rush because it's such a high number is a good look from the standpoint that even when he does try to get out and run, this Tampa Bay defense has been incredible at containing quarterbacks, giving up a good amount of attempts because they have been getting pressure on the quarterback. But 4.4 yards per carry allowed to the quarterback is a really, really nice number. It's not like a running back here where 4.4 would actually be a really good rush. It's like, no, when your back is turned to the quarterback, he's only able to get 4 yards past the line of scrimmage, and he might be the fastest guy on the field or top 5 fastest guy on the field at all times. Like, yeah, then that shows really good patience and ability to contain, right? And that's what you need, I think, to stop him, because you're not going to outrun him. You have to be in position to stop him already. And if you look at him on the season on the road, rookie stuff here, 200 yards per game passing on the road right now. And he struggled against the blitz as well, which I mentioned you're going to see come. He does take off a little bit early if you come up the middle, and then that's where the containment on the outside for this zone D would be for this team. So yeah, the lack of man coverage that you'll see from Tampa Bay's defense helps a ton to be able to maintain the rushing. And then as far as the passing, they keep the receivers in front of them. And I think he'll probably be at around 200, 210 passing yards, I think is a fair assumption for him, but you're not looking at another 70 yards rushing or so.
Yeah, which you could take the passing at under 234, I believe, on its own. Because I mean, he did go for 88 rushing yards in his debut against Tampa, well under 200 passing. But since then, yeah, I mean, that was probably a coaching moment for Todd Bowles and company to be like, all right, here's how we contain running quarterbacks. And basically, the most they've given up since then is about 50 to Lamar, and they've done a really good job limiting running quarterbacks. Certainly, that's going to be a point of emphasis here as they prepare for this playoff matchup. So I think, yeah, they probably do a pretty good job containing him there. And I think as long as you lock in on the deep passes to McLaurin, I don't really have a ton of respect for this Washington passing attack, like consistently moving the ball. Yeah, as we've seen kind of down the stretch, is like, yeah, they can look shaky at times. The Cowboys really consistently in two matchups made them look bad. I'll also take an under here on Monday night. Now in Arizona, Sam Darnold under 270 passing yards. It's just really high, man. I mean, I know the Rams give up some explosive pass plays. You know who else does? The Detroit Lions. And with the stakes elevated, they completely flummoxed Sam Darnold with I think as bad or worse personnel than this Rams team. I trust Sean McVay on extra rest and prep time here. Probably was preparing for both opponents. But if we're honest, if Sean McVay was handicapping that Sunday night game behind closed doors, he's like, I think we're getting the Vikings here. And that's why, we're okay resting our guys in week 18. Because if we were getting the Detroit Lions, you'd be like, okay, maybe we got to move up. They're kind of a tough team to deal with. But Darnold, I mean, there's a scenario here where it's just like the stakes are too high, man. Like he's had a great season. He was in MVP talks for a while. He's made a lot of plays. A lot of like just kind of like luck box plays I would consider down the stretch here where it's just like, oh, you escaped pressure and bombed it and the D-back fell down and Jordan Addison 80-yard touchdown. And like that's a lot of his they're on these like broken plays. It's not like he's like throwing a ton of darts down the field. And Minnesota, I mean, will they be able to stay on the field? That's kind of the big thing here is a time of possession game. In the first meeting between these teams, Kyron pounded the rock. The Rams had 34 minutes possession to 26 for the Vikings. They went 2 for 7 on third downs. The Vikings had the third lowest third down conversion rate on the road, 32%, struggled lately. And so with that lower time of possession, Darnold got to 240, not particularly good. And certainly not like 271, which is just like giving him a lot of respect here in a playoff game for a guy who, up until this year, we were just like, why would we give him any respect? And Kevin O'Connell can script a good opening, but can Darnold really adjust as this Rams defense starts to push his buttons and see if he can really hold up in these high stakes games?
Yeah, it's just high, man. I mean, look, I took two unders in the Saturday games there, two different unders. In that one, I've got an under on Jaden Daniels. You've got Sam Darnold. It's the playoffs. Things tighten up, man. Teams are looking to keep the ball in their possession for even longer. There's less desire to go out there and try shit. It's just, can I keep my offense on the field, the defense off the field, and take advantage of points and not turn the ball over? And I feel like that's playoff football, which becomes way more conservative. And you will have a few healthy backs in there for Darnold as well that he can rely on a bit more. So yeah, I 270 and a half. Come on, that's insane, even against this Rams team. So I'm with you on that. I'm going to go with another under. I do have an over for the third pick here, but the second play also going under on Jaleel McLaughlin here, specifically the rush yards, under 32 and a half. And look, I mean, there's a bit of a toss-up with the running back situation for Denver, as it's been all season. Don't listen to anything Sean Payton says. He's not going to give you an accurate sort of like projection for what you can expect from his running back committee coming up this Sunday. But I will say 32 and a half for a guy who it seems like he's at this point really relegated to mostly being the pass back, right? The pass down back that they have there. He only played 29 total snaps combined there in week 15 and week 17. He got those 30 snaps in the blowout against KC in the backups there, really almost indicates that like they were willing to put him in some garbage time in the week before, they basically have to go to the playoffs. For the Bills here, their rush defense, much better. Been talking about that. I'll talk about why I don't really respect their pass defense as much, but their rush defense is 5th in EPA on the season, and they're looking at home, most teams trying to pass on them for a good reason. So they're only at a 40% play rate when they're on defense, facing a 40% pass play rate, I should say. So other teams are really running the ball, almost 2/3 of the time against them, well over half, meaning that's probably what you expect here. Once again, from Bo Nix and company is like, I think at the very least it's dink and dunk. I think Marvin Mims is heavily involved in the run game, either as a rusher or a bubble screen or behind the line, sort of backwards pass almost kind of guys. We've seen him running up the sidelines after catching those. So he'll be out there as a receiver. I do think you still see maybe like 30-ish% snap rate there for Jaleel McLaughlin, but it's going to be a lot of route participation and a lot less taking handoffs under center against a very, very good Bills rush defense.
Yeah, it just seems like an overreaction based on recent usage to go 12.5 yards for Javonte and 32.5 for McLaughlin. It's like, yeah, what are we anticipating here? That what would we know that Sean Payton's going to decide here is like, oh, Javonte's no longer our lead back. It is this scat back. Like it's just too big of a discrepancy. Like you could go over on Javonte, under on McLaughlin, probably be right on both. Or we'll see. Like it could just be a roulette wheel. I think you take the highest under here between 3 guys who could get carries in a game with negative game script, and you're probably having the highest probability of it coming home. Last pick for me is Bucky Irving, over 17.5 rush attempts, plus 100 at MGM. Very nice there. I'm looking at some parlays here for Bucky to get under his 87.5 rush yards, maybe just like 60 plus in a Tampa win, Tampa to cover. Like I don't think he can necessarily roll up 100 yards on Washington. I mean, he certainly can, but I think what Tampa's going to be able to do is just, again, like you're saying, in the playoffs, be a little more conservative. Like we have a superior team. We're much better in the trenches. Like you look at the EPA stuff, number 2 on early downs for Tampa's offense. And Washington is 29th on the season defensively on early downs, stopping the run. Tampa, that's the second half of the year in terms of their success. So they've come on strong, and it's not a coincidence that Bucky Irving became the lead back the second half of the year. In the first matchup in week 1, he went 9 for 62, and Rachaad White 15 for 31. And so that experiment is long over in terms of them splitting carries. Rachaad White 0 carries with the division on the line in week 18, 6 carries the game before, but Irving is clearly the lead back. Teams have been able to pound it against Washington. Like they gave up this many carries twice to Rico Dowdle, of course, twice to Saquon, of course to Derrick Henry, James Conner, guys who are really good backs, playing behind really good offensive lines. And their best defensive player, Frankie Louvu, is dealing with his shoulder. So he's been limited in practice. I just don't respect the personnel here for Washington. You look at the other side, Tampa is number 1 in rush defense EPA. So like Bucks to win for sure. Like if you can control both sides of the line of scrimmage, I don't care how good Jaden Daniels is at making magic. Like as long as Baker doesn't throw 2 or 3 picks here, like I think the Bucks win this game, and that means they'll just keep feeding Irving in the second half.
Yeah, I love Bucky right now. I kind of was looking at Bucky receiving. I think he's going to be out there so much at this point that like you don't really have to worry about the like split as much. And yeah, I think that the middle of the field will be open as well without Frankie Louvu. Who, yeah, what an entrance to the league for Frankie. But yeah, now we're talking about him being limited in this one. I fucking love Bucky. Tried with my whole might and force of my dynasty league team to get Bucky Irving last season. I couldn't do, or coming into this season, couldn't do it. And this dude's going to be around for a minute. So let me talk about a guy who has been around for a minute. We thought he would be a little bit better, but now he's finally being used correctly. That's Marvin Mims, one of the best names in wide receiver history as well. Long reception is where I'm going with Marvin. I'm not scared of his receiving prop necessarily, but I think he's going to get most of it on like 2 of them, to be honest. So I got 19.5 as the long reception, going over that. Minus 115 is the core number there. Then 30 plus is plus 230. And let me tell you, he's been very good for 7 games now. And in 6 of those 7, he's gotten a 30-plus yard reception, not just a 20-plus yard reception like you would need for the core prop, a 30-plus yard reception. The craziest stat of that, in the last 7 games, 6 of those, he's had at least one 30-plus yard reception. And in those, half of those 6, so 3 of them came from on a pass behind the line of scrimmage. So he did not receive a downfield look on those ones. He got that 30 yards of yak, more than 30 yards of yak, as he's behind the line of scrimmage, catching a lot of that stuff. That's partly why it's correlated to like an under for whichever Broncos running back is above 30, 35 yards rushing. We're going to go under, because I think Marvin Mims is going to be supplementing that with the same type of plays that we've seen from Sean Payton, getting the ball into his hands early in the play clock and very early in the drop back. So if you want to know the exact numbers here, what's really incredible is he's at 62 yards per game in the last 7. He's leading the NFL this season. He led it, I should say, since the season's over, in separation average per route run and yards after the catch per reception. So when he caught the ball, he was the one running the most yards per catch afterwards. And then as far as the separation, that was the craziest part to me, was just like, sometimes I think there was some skewed stuff when I looked a little bit more deeply into it. There's a little bit of skewed narrative when he's running down the sideline without anybody near him and getting separation as a result of not having a defender anywhere near him because they didn't see him coming out of the backfield or what have you for the wheel route kind of thing. But at the same time, like, he is showing the ability to get away from probably the third, fourth cornerback on the other team. Maybe he gets a little bit more respect this time at this point moving forward. But I mean, we've seen like the nickels staying with Vele. We've seen obviously Courtland Sutton getting most of the attention here. So the fact that he's still in that situation where, look, this is a 9.5 point spread. We're going to see Knicks throwing that ball. And this Buffalo defense, we talked about it. In the defensive secondary, that's where it's vulnerable, way more so than that really great linebacking core and the run rush defense of the D line as well. In their last 4 games that mattered, not the last one, 320 yards passing per game against them. And obviously, Josh, that a big part of that is going to be that the shootouts that Josh Allen has been in. But what's the difference here? Like, if you're the Broncos defense, you're still going to be watching Josh Allen go down the field and get at least 3 to 4 scores in a way that's going to force you to put the pedal to the metal a bit more. And you're going to have to target Marvin in that sense. So I think he's good for the long reception. If you want him in the core on the receiving yards as well, that's where I'd go instead of the receptions.
Yeah, that was the game script that unfolded with the Bengals against Broncos, right? Where Mims was targeted a lot late, came down with some huge throws. Could see the same thing here. Buffalo just absolutely gashed when they play that zone too much. Would be interesting. They probably man up more here in a playoff game, try to get in their face and fluster this Denver team, try to take away some of these quick screens that Peyton has been calling so often to get Knicks going. And see if the rookie can beat them downfield, make some mistakes. But that would give you more opportunities for these downfield splash plays. So I think you're playing it right. It is maybe the toughest spread to cap of the entire weekend, though, at 8.5, 9.5, wherever it is. It's like, yeah. I don't know how good the Denver offense is going to be in this environment. They could just get absolutely run off the field, or they could just be in comeback mode trying to keep up with Josh Allen. But Josh Allen is putting up points, and so that's why it's good to take an explosive playmaker on the other side.
And a negative game script. But I mean, I'm going to speak for both of us and say that we're Bo Nix believers, right? Like, I know we've been looking at him all season going like, holy crap, the Broncos got a quarterback. This is going to be really good for them at some point soon. And the legs for Bo as well, I think, are a potential look against the Bills as well. If they're able to get any kind of pressure, he's like, great, let me get this 20 yards rushing. But more importantly, that is all the time we have for you in this week's video for the Monday NFL games. Also, want to check out the Saturday games with a separate episode that we have up and cover those player props for you as well. We're coming back the rest of the playoffs and into the Super Bowl. So subscribe to that page. Until we see you next, happy betting.